Alright guys, I figured we'd do a quick video with the 4.8 here for the 240, Jaimie's motor. So we tore it down a little bit, and I never had any problems with this engine, but just to show her and just for fun and just to show you guys, I never usually gap my motors, which is opening up the ring gap here. We're going to show you how I do that, but I wanted to show her how it's done, and we wanted to see, since this motor never blew, we wanted to see like what the ring gap was like. And some of them are surprisingly loose, which is why this motor worked so well. So we pulled all the pistons out, and then what happens is say this is number 1357, so this is cylinder number 7. What you do is you take the two rings out, the top and the bottom ring, and then what I do is I measure the bottom ring first, because when I'm done I install it in the piston, and you just smush it into the bore, which you can see pretty well. Yep, I think so. Yep, I can see it great.
Okay, so I'm going to push it in and set it.
Yep, and then what I do is I just push into the oil ring skirt here. Yep. And then as you can see, it's flush in the bore and it's in there nice and even. And then you take a feeler gauge, and we'll measure. Yeah, nice and fancy. That one actually is real fancy.
It went right to 25, so maybe just a little bit bigger.
Yeah, what I'm doing here is cylinder number 1 is pretty loose, and it was 30 on the bottom ring.
It's 28 tight, just like the last one.
Okay, 30 and 25 for the top. And I figured we would just match all cylinders to that and then see if any were tight, just for fun. I've had some cylinders where they actually broke the piston, and this top ring only measured out to about 17 or 15, which is pretty tight. Most people gap, like they take apart a turbo motor like this, and they gap it to 28 or so, in the mid-20s, sometimes up to 30. But we're just gonna do 30 on the bottom and 25 on the top. So this one's 28, so we'll knock a little bit out of it. And then
measure the top one now?
Yeah, we'll measure the top one now. And then I'll show you guys how they sell a beautiful tool called a ring filer, which I don't have and don't ever plan on buying. I use an angle grinder over here, or a file, depending on how far it needs to go. That looks pretty tight.
Yeah, that's really tight.
Now guys, what you do is you shove the feeler gauge right in that gap. And
do a nice close-up. Whoa.
What's that? Tighter than 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Go
like
right to like 15 and see if 17 drops in. I've never had one. I only had one that was 15. Most of them end up being 17. 17 fits pretty good, huh?
Yeah, 17's good.
Okay, so it's 17 and 25, 28. Okay. Yeah, so 17 needs to be opened up quite a few thousandths to get to 25, and this only needs to be opened up a tiny bit. So what I do is I just fire this guy up, and I'll put it in between the blade, and I go derp, 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 and I just bounce it in there a tiny bit if only a few thousandths have to come out. And then after it fits well, you might end up with a little bit of a lip on the edge of this, which I just use a file here, and I just take the lips off the edge so it doesn't grab the piston or the bore or anything else. So I'll file this guy down, and then I'll fire up the camera again, and I'll show you what it looks like obviously when it fits correctly, and then we'll jam the piston in. Alright guys, we are back, and the bottom ring is opened up to about 30 and the other ring's opened up to about 25, so Jaimie's dropping in the
I'm already starting.
second ring here. The lower ring, we should say. Yep.
Guys in. I always have trouble with the top one.
She's got tiny hands, guys. She has trouble supporting the entire ring and skirt at the same time, so we'll give her a hand for this performance. Oh yeah.
Alright, so
you got it.
I'm going to turn them, get some of the crud out of there.
Yep, yep.
Matt's favorite.
Yep. And then line up the gaps.
One on each side.
Yep. Whichever ones, I don't give a shit. Now, people always talk about this, how it should be 6 o'clock and 3 o'clock or some bullshit. It doesn't matter.
Matt doesn't care.
Matt doesn't give a shit about that stuff.
Alright, so
and then,
now fancy tool that Matt has.
oh yeah, I actually bought this real fancy single piece bore tool, piston ring compressor. It is wonderful. Let me tell you what, worth every bit of $25. Summit brand, 378 bore. Now you just drop it in that solid tapered piece, get the skirt out a little bit, and then you want to make sure the nipple is forward on these pistons. that has to face the balancer. Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter what you do, but if you start, I always start with this guy going towards the balancer. So every piston should be that way towards the balancer. I think some people say you can install that the other way, but it's just with getting the rods in the right spots. So as long as it's one direction, it's fine, kind of bullshit, but I've always put them together this way and not had a problem. So you drop the guy in, you get the skirt lined up, and the piston's ready to rock, basically. And you just javelin that shit in there with a hammer.
You want to hold it so it's good?
Yeah, what I normally do is I pull the crank out of the way, and then I get my hand ready in here. Yep. Yep.
You good?
Is it in already?
Just a little.
That's what she said. Pop it a little bit more.
It's in.
All right. Yep, as you can see, when it's below the deck here, you're set. And then what that gives you room for is bringing the rod up to the thing. So you want to pound this in a tiny bit more?
Sure.
What I'm going to do here is, when she brings it in, is I'm going to line it up.
Is that good?
Yep. Keep bopping it. Keep bopping it. A little bit. Lightly. And then hit it. Yep. It's flat. It's good. So you take the rod cap. And since these are cracked and they're directional, it's fairly easy with the Gen 3 rods because there's a tapered edge and then a straight edge. So you just line up the straight edge and the tapered edge, and I just hand tighten these until I'm ready. And I actually torque these, and I'm unsure if these are supposed to be reusable or not, but they're not labeled as TTY, but they are stretch. They do have you... The paperwork from GM says to do like 15 foot-pounds and then do 90 degrees or some bullshit. I torque them to 35 pounds on a Harbor Freight wrench. And then on the mains, I figure I'll just say I do 55 on both bolts, and then those I just tighten to whatever. Who cares about those? But that's it. That's how you get it done. Easy. All right, I got an LS1 cam for this 4.8 turbo motor. Going in. Yeah.